in them because I'm probably on anxiety part 3 right now. I've talked about anxiety a lot, but I want to talk about this angle. I got in a really crazy car accident. Y'all know this. I got in a crazy car accident. I think I was a senior. I was senior in high school. Got in a crazy car accident. And I wasn't driving. My mans was driving. And we went on this turn, but he was going too fast, so we didn't make the turn. And so the truck flips all crazy. To make a long story short, you know, I was unconscious half of the time. The doctors basically said, yo, there's no way these kids should have made it. Like, it's a miracle that they're still alive. It was a crazy accident. The car was total. And I mean, people always say that their life flashed before their eyes. Mine didn't. It was more my life after the fact. I saw people sitting around like, dang, that's how he died? And I was like, oh, nah, that's a dub. That's a dub. And so, to make a long story short, after all that was over and I left the hospital, and I was kind of like still shaken up. I was still so like, I'm glad I'm alive, but that was a very scary situation. My mom said, you have to start driving again. Because if you don't, you'll never be able to shake this. And so, you know, I was just like, you know, Mom, like, the last thing I want to do is drive a car. Even though I didn't cause the accident, I just didn't want to drive a car. And so she wanted to see where the accident was. And it's crazy because we went back to the spot. My body started to literally like shake. My heart is racing. I started to weep and weep and weep. It was so traumatic. And this is actually where I started to learn about PTSD. And so I think, you know, when it comes to anxiety part 3, I'll probably call this PTSD. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD, you've seen people in the army or the military, they struggle with that because they come home from like war into like a regular life. It's hard for them. I mean, loud noises make them jump. Like, you know what I'm saying? Any little thing could make somebody move like that. Somebody's probably traumatized. And so you can have PTSD for many other things. But I wanted to say you can only be anxious, or in other words, you can only anticipate something that you've already previously experienced. Is that clear? If you're anxious about something, that just means you're anticipating something. It could be failure, disappointment, embarrassment, being let down, maybe loss, rejection. But if you're anticipating it, like if you feel anxious, you've probably experienced that before. Some people very, very young, so they don't remember. Some people very, very recently. And for example, in my case, again, that was my senior year in high school. So I vividly can remember that car accident. So what happened was I get in the car, and my mom is like, no, you need to drive. And this is like months later. I was like, okay, I'm going to just get in the front seat. And I was like trembling. I started the car and I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. So I'm driving the car. I'm like, okay, I got this. Like, yeah, I can drive. That wasn't, the situation happened for several other reasons, but I can drive. And so my brain started to receive new information, which made me feel safe with me driving the car. But I didn't realize I'd never wanted anyone else to drive me. I could drive. If I'm driving, I'm good. But the moment somebody want to drive me, I'm like, I'm good. I don't ride with people. Anybody that knows me today, I still ride with very little people. I gonna drive because I feel safest when I drive. And so what happened was the one person that I started to feel open with was my mother. When my mother drove me around, I could do it. But the moment you would hit a turn, my brain, it was like I would shut off. I got completely clocked out. I would start stomping. I start shaking. My heart starts racing. And that it almost became my boundary. I would just communicate to people like, hey, if you're going to drive me, I need you to slow down on turns. The moment you go on a turn, I'm going to start. Like, it's not me. I can't even control it. And so it was just one day. I was riding in my mother's car. And I started like, my body started doing the thing it does. Like I'm shaking, I'm getting nervous, I'm getting scared, and I'm getting anxious. I didn't even know that was the word back then. I was getting anxious. And she just said, son, it's your mother driving. I've been driving you around for a long time, since you were a baby. And I have protected you for a long time. You can trust me. And when I heard her say that, it just clicked to me like, she's right. this is my mother driving this car. I didn't get in an accident with my mother. I got in an accident with someone who just recently got their license, was young, music was loud, it was a crazy day, it was raining outside. It just wasn't a good predicament. But this is my mother. And so I can't say that the symptoms of the shaking and the heart palpitations and me banging on the door went away. But the truth that that was my mom helped me do things like go to sleep now in the car. It helped me learn that my body and the effects of the post-trauma had nothing to do with the people. I was traumatized. I was triggered. But my body's responding in a way that I literally can't control. The only thing that will help is this thing I'm about to tell y'all today is repetition and exposure. It's what I've learned that helps with post-traumatic stress and anxiety, period. Repetition and exposure means you have to repetitively expose yourself to something that's so used to cripple you so that your brain can receive new information. If I had not driven that car again, I would just have stayed in this idea that if I get in a car, I'm going to get in an accident. Because my brain is doing its job. My brain is trying to keep me alive. My brain is telling me, don't get in the car again, danger, danger, danger. But as I got in the car again with people like my mother, within people that I could also trust after I communicated, hey, take your time on these turns. As I repetitively exposed myself to being in the car with someone else, slowly but surely the symptoms started to decrease. The intensity of the heart palpitations decreased. The intensity of the jumps and the shivers and it started to decrease. But that's because I repetitively allowed someone to give me a ride. I let someone drive me when they said, I can drive. I said, okay. And it wasn't easy. And still to this day, you might see me go, like, but I always tease people, say, hey, just let you know that's not me. That's just, some things it may never leave you. But over time, you know, especially when someone really goes the extra mile to make you feel safe after you've communicated what you need, it's beautiful. Like, there's certain people, I could literally fall asleep in the car with them. And there's some people, I'm staying up the whole time because I really don't know you just yet. I don't really trust you yet. I don't know how you drive. And so when it comes to all aspects of life, though, and before, as I close this out, if you're anxious about something, like I used to not be able to go in certain meetings and speak. Like, anxiety can get so real, you feel like you can't even speak sometimes. There's certain rooms you can't even walk in. It gets really serious. But this is what I'll say. It helps when you have some support. Like, I've had people like my sister. I've had people that stand by my side. I say, listen, you stand by my side, I'll go. I say, yo, if you walk with me in this meeting, I'll go. If you stand here, it gives me strength to speak. Like, I ain't gonna lie, it's like, especially with social anxiety. Like, there's certain rooms I never even wanted to walk into, but because of my support, it helped me. And how I explain this is when a tree is grown, when a baby tree is growing, it has these two posts on the side, and it literally holds the tree up and keeps it in place. But that tree doesn't always need those two posts. Eventually, the tree starts to get stronger on its own, where you can remove the two posts, which is its support, and the tree begins to grow beautiful. And that's what it's like when you're dealing with somebody who's really anxious, especially with social anxiety, post-traumatic stress. Sometimes you just need support. You need that word of affirmation. You need that presence with you to remind you, you got this, don't worry, you got this, we're here. You're safe. Sometimes you need to remind yourself you're safe. And then I've talked about the flip side of that, where sometimes the enemy will literally try to talk you out of speaking up when God is telling you to speak. I've learned that the spirit behind it, anxiety, see, comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Oh, nobody wants to hear you talk in this meeting. You're too young. What do you know about this topic? You don't belong here. See, so you're anticipating rejection. You're anticipating failure. You're anticipating maybe being ostracized. It's a very beautiful journey, but you got to repetitively expose yourself. And so I would say to, like, if you guys have a meeting you have to go into and you get nervous, you get anxious, you know, what if they don't listen to you? What if you sound stupid? You know, what if there's no room for you at the table? What if you get embarrassed? What if they're all looking at you? I would tell you, if you have support and if it's doable, have somebody come with you in the meeting. But if it's not doable, I would say you go in there and remind yourself you're safe. I would say remind yourself that most people are so focused on themselves that they're not really thinking about you. And most people are so concerned about themselves and how they sound, how they look, that you might as well just be yourself. I would say whenever you get the opportunity to do something that scares you, do it over and over and over again. And eventually, you believe it or not, you start to grow in confidence because you repetitively expose yourself to what's so used to cripple you. But what happens is you can't keep looking at life as the little boy or the little girl. As you grow older, if you go scared, see, because the little you is scared. Now that you're older and wiser, you give your brain new information to reference. You see what I'm saying? You start to realize, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, okay, I see things now from a different perspective. You start to grow in confidence just from doing it repetitively. It's beautiful.